So thank you for being here, guys.
À toi,
The opening statement: for centuries, luxury has been built on one thing, the relationship between a maison and its client. Someone who knows you, remembers the occasion, and guides you to the right piece. That relationship has never existed online until now. The website has been a static shelf. Today, we ask what happens when the advisor finally arrives in the digital space, and whether agentic commerce can carry the intimacy that luxury was built on. So this is a quite big topic we will be talking about. Théo Satloff, you are co-founder and CEO of Remark. You grew up in New York, raised by merchants in the luxury retail space. You attended showroom demos and runways event at a very young age. You studied computer science at a Colby College, where you wrote autonomous drone communication protocols as a researcher. That's a big thing. Before going on to work as a software engineer, I know, at Amazon, working to develop the first iteration for Alexa product. Impressive. Ian Patterson, you are the co-founder and head of sales. You grew up in New York. You went to the same school. You stepped in fashion at a very early age. Your grandparents founded a millinery business on the Fifth Avenue, crafting high-quality hats from within the garment district in New York. You met in college, and you co-founded online marketplace for private clients before launching your second venture about Remark. Important so is Remark pairs shoppers with AI client advisors that guide them through the entire shopping journey, from sizing, styling to returns, gift reminders, and beyond. You raised over $30 million, and that's quite impressive. And I think your solution is really kick-ass. You don't say that in French, but it's true. So let's say, why Remark? Every founder has a moment where the idea becomes unavoidable. Why did you build Remark? What did you see in the retail that convinced you something was missing?
Well, thank you for the, I think, the illustrious overview of our backgrounds. I think at least for me, the starting point that you touched on, being raised by a family that were merchants. My mom was a fine jewelry manufacturer, and so I got to spend a lot of time in amazing retail experiences. Like in New York back in the day, Barney's was an amazing place to go shop. Nordstrom, Printemps. You have so many really unbeatable experiences that when you find a client advisor, in New York, there's this eponymous woman named Burgdorf Betty that, if you're from New York, she, up until her late 90s, was the client advisor that everyone went to at Burgdorf, and she kind of, built these relationships from scratch over the course of maybe a 70-year career. That concept was the origin for me and kind of the impetus for wanting to build this, because, it's getting harder and harder to find those amazing experiences in person. Rent is very expensive. Having those locations is becoming more and more hard to achieve, and so bringing that experience to the online ecosystem was really a way of extending that.
So something you learned. Ian, there are chatbots and supports widget everywhere. We go to a site, we get, how can I help you? But it doesn't help anyway. What does Remark do better, or what differently, that makes you something other than one more box in the corner of a website that you want to interact with? What do you do differently?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And some context I'd add to Theo's point is that there are so many amazing experiences that client advisors give to their clients right now. The problem is that they reach such a tiny component and such a tiny demographic relative to their overall client base. So I gave a masterclass earlier, and the metric we always see is that client advisors engage with maybe 2% of their overall audience, right? So 98% of their audience is not getting that elevated experience that has driven so much revenue for decades and decades. So that's like our general thesis when we want to engage with a customer. It's, all right, there's a baseline for what prestige experience looks like. How do we deliver that to everybody? When we're to your question, like how do we set ourselves apart, right? How do we really bring people into the fold? And we always look at like the parallel to the in-store environment. Like what would you do in store? Well, you'd walk up to somebody and you prompt them, like, what are you buying for? The first thing that so many chat systems don't acknowledge is like, are you buying it for yourself or are you buying it as a gift? Right? Simple things like that. Like, are you having trouble with sizing? If somebody adds 2 t-shirts to their cart and one is size medium and one is size large, but they're the exact same shirt, you should probably prompt them to say, do you have a question on sizing? Like there are all of these small gestures and small triggers that can turn something that might be annoying to a shopper, like how may I assist you, to all of a sudden like, oh no, this is helpful. I do have a question. I am trying to buy a gift. Father's Day is coming up. Like just go from that approach of like, what would you do in store? How would you walk up to somebody and greet them? That really can change the way not only how a shopper will receive that sort of notification from the agent, but also what they're willing to volunteer. If shoppers feel like they're being helped, they will divulge more. They will tell you more. They will tell you why they're buying.
Do you think agentic AI can bridge the gap between someone who is in the store where you trust this and having it online? Because you have 30% transformation rate in the store and maybe between 2 and 4 online. And going to this, how do you build the trust to give a lot of information that is maybe very personal? And how does it work for anonymous users? Because everyone always asks, do you need to be locked to get all this information? No, you don't. But if you can enlighten us, that would be good.
Yeah, it's a good question, and just to reiterate your question in a slightly different way, there is this massive gap between in-store conversion rates and online. In-store, in really a pretty low case, it's around 30%, and online, in the best case, it's like 2.5%. And so there's this really big delta. Your question about anonymous browsers is actually quite similar to what we would see in store too, where when someone walks in the door and you don't know them, the client advisor pretty quickly can look them up and down and get a sense for maybe what their budget's going to be, what their style is, what department they should really end up landing in. We can do the same thing online. So looking at the navigation tree structure, seeing if they look at men's clothing or women's clothing, or if they use the search bar, or if they're on a PDP or on a specific page for more than a couple minutes reading the description. We can actually learn a lot from those interactions. And then, as Ian was mentioning, we can prompt them. So we can encourage them to engage, ask them more questions, and get them to tell us a little bit more about themselves, even if we don't know their name or their email or anything else about them. So
what you're looking for is the intent.
We want their intent and just some general, largely anonymized demographic information. So, this is approximately the size they might be looking for, or they like a looser fit, or they're buying for their fiance, or they're, they have a trip coming up. These are all pieces of information that make the journey very personalizable, even if it's still anonymous.
Perfect. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and what we see, not just with chat systems, but AI systems at large in the e-com space, is that they're allowing brands to break out of the mold of a sort of like if-then process. A lot of old chat systems are just CRM systems, email systems. They're kind of built on this framework of if a shopper does this, then we should do this, then we should do this. And it's extremely static and immovable.
What we call the clickstream. It's just following the clickstream.
Exactly. And what gets us so excited about this space is how dynamic it can be, and how you're approaching every customer journey as something that actually inherently should be different. And that's pretty novel for e-commerce. It's actually not novel at all, though, if we look at what most Gen Z individuals are engaging with. Like when you think about TikTok, Instagram, Meta, every time you scroll on your feed, it's learning about you. It's understanding what trends do you like, what do you not like, what are you engaging with, what are your friends like, and it'll update that in real time for you. Websites are not built that way. Like Shopify is not built that way at all. But our view is, yes, if we learn that Theo's buying for his girlfriend, all of a sudden the entire journey should change based off that. That is incredibly valuable info, and that's exactly what Meta would do if they ran Shopify, right, or Salesforce, etc.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if luxury sells rarity and human gesture, agentic AI scales and accelerates. be honest with this room. Are those two logic actually compatible, or is there a real tension you're still working through?
Yeah, no, it's something we think about every day, because a lot of where we came from with our product like started with this amazing in-person human to human journey. The first versions of our product and what we've still been growing behind the scenes as well, of like, how do we augment the human to human experience? So how do we allow a human client advisor to be reminded when to remind their own clients, right? How do we help pair them with maybe virtual reality tools that can help their client advisor? But I'll say, in our experience, a lot of how we choose the experience for our brands is just based off of what our brands want, because there are brands who want to go fully rotate into a heavy AI experience. And then there are some very high luxury maisons who want something that's just operating behind the scenes. And our goal is like, let's help you understand what's possible and then build from that.
I think one add-on to that also is many of the brands we work with, they come from a perspective of, this is how we've always done things. This is how the system is supposed to work. And they're not yet in the kind of sort of mind-opening perspective of, this is really what can be done. And so we're able to look at, a return process, for instance, or an exchange process, and help them understand a better way for them and a better way for the end consumer, and codify this. So build it in a way that is much more reliable, but also, more understandable, more sustainable, and faster, which makes it obviously better for the end consumer, but cheaper for the brand. And that can still be largely audited or fueled by a human, but it just makes the experience better for every stakeholder. So I wouldn't really say it's a tension or a push and pull, but more of there has to be a mutual appreciation for the systems, I think, to work well.
Go ahead. Yeah,
ahead. The only other thing I'd add is, going back to like being able to stay dynamic, we're seeing that shopper tendencies are changing so dramatically. Like, we got into this quite early, like before ChatGPT, like the version we know, even came out. And it's been fascinating to see how much shoppers are learning certain tendencies from GPT, from Gemini, from Claude, and how they're paralleling that into the chat space. Because if we're engaging with them in sort of a same mentality, all of a sudden shoppers are volunteering so much info in chat environments, because that's what they're primed to do in all of these other larger LLM systems. And so in what we're seeing, like, we're reading millions of conversations with our system, not as much of those personally, but we're reading a lot of conversations personally as well. And the richest zero-party data that nobody is really using right now is the conversational data. Like, your shopper will go and tell you, this is my size, this is who I'm buying for. Once again, like, all of these details, and it's unstructured. So inherently, like, brands have looked at unstructured data as untouchable, because it's not a click, it's not an add to cart. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to put that into a CSV file. The beauty of these large language models is that they can actually take that info and make it usable, use it in a future conversation.
So when we're talking about information, that's the biggest fear of all the maisons and all the brands. How do you manage the information and the client relationship so it doesn't end up by the vendor at the maison? What do you do? What's the model?
Yeah, there are a couple of different ways to do it. I think the easiest way to think about structuring or storing data logically is, you have completely anonymous, you have partially anonymous, so partially identifiable, and then you have logged in states. So you can have a fully authenticated state that actually allows for all of this data to be maintained with a persistent key. And so a user or a shopper visiting the site could opt to sign in and basically have the agent or the site pull up not just the information that they've shared online, but also what they've shared in the boutique. So they can basically get the information that the client advisor themselves has stored through WhatsApp conversations or through other one-on-one interactions. So there are really these three different buckets that each are very effective, but depending on the maison or the shopper's comfort level can differ.
Okay, a question that's quite interesting. When a first-time visitor reveals their taste, occasion, budget, whatever they're giving, you learn a lot about this person, even first time. How do you bridge that into making it a VIC relationship in the long term?
I think this is the art of LLMs. LLMs are they're just math, and it's math that you've applied a layer of taste to. And this is going to sound somewhat reductive, but that's the same exact thing that a sales associate or a client advisor is. They train on the product line of a brand. They learn which products are supposed to go together. They understand this collection goes with this collection doesn't go with this collection. And so in much the same way, it's just a reinforcement of math or of patterns. And so we do the same thing. We train our models to behave and act just like the in-store client advisor would. So that way, when a shopper comes to the site and we start to pull out these elements or these attributes about that shopper, we weight them the exact same way that a client advisor would do natively. And so we would say like, oh, okay, I'm looking at this person's legs. They're very long. And so they're going to be, a longer length than most of our product line would account for. And so I'm going to automatically narrow down what's going to work for them. Or, they have a very large upper body or something. We have to find a different fit for them. Or, they're going on a trip to Chamonix in the middle of winter. And so we're not going to give them summer clothing. We're going to give them something that's a little bit heavier. And so there's the nuance of really behaving in the human way and digesting what the shoppers are willing to kind of tell us in as natural a way as possible.
Perfect. Last question. If a brand director would like to test agentic clienteling next quarter, what should be the smallest step be to do that? First of all, take a rendezvous with you. That would be good. But after that, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a lovely question. And I often, when I start talking to brands, I'm just like, where's your biggest pain point right now? Like where is your shopper getting stuck in the purchase journey? And often like brands don't even like know that part because it's kind of a hard question. But all right, shopper lands on your site. You've paid a ton of money for your shopper to get to the homepage. Where are they getting stuck between homepage and checkout? Is it sizing? Great. Try to work on an agent around sizing. Is it around styling? Try to work on an agent around styling. Is it on fit? Are you trying to summarize reviews? Like I say, like just go really, really narrow, but then offer an opportunity for a customer to be kind of be unstructured in what they're asking. Like let the shopper lead you to water is kind of like how we refer to it internally, where you've all had probably experiences with shoppers being very vocal about what they don't like, and like kind of let them do that. That'll guide you in the best way possible.
Perfect. So just to sum it up, for centuries, the luxury relationship lived in the boutique, in the handshake, a memory, a name remembered. What both of you guys have built asks whether the intimacy can travel into the digital space without losing what made it precious. The advisor relationship is the oldest idea in luxury. Bringing it in online might be the newest thing. Thank you very much for having us here, and thank you for the share.
Thank you.